Welcome to Humane Voices, the official podcast of the Humane Society of the United States. I'm Kelly, here with my pal Chad, and we're your hosts for today. We've got some really helpful information I think you all are going to appreciate, may really hit for some of you. Millions of people share their homes and their lives with their pets, even those who are allergic to animals. Unfortunately, some people do believe that once they are diagnosed with a pet allergy, they have no choice but to remove their pets from their family. If this is you, or if you have any experience with pet allergies, then today is a really great day to join us. We're going to give you some tips on how best to deal with allergies. And our guest, she is a returning champion. She is also a pet go-to expert here at HSUS. It is Lindsay Hamrick, who is the Director of Shelter Outreach and Engagement at the Humane Society of the United States. Lindsay, welcome. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me back on the podcast.
Absolutely. Lindsay, everybody, is kind of our go-to, like any issue. It's like, well, let's just call Lindsay. She'll do it. How about Wales and Iceland, Lindsay? You got that covered?
I was just in Iceland last year. I'm happy to talk about that.
See, Chad, it holds true.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Whatever obscure thing we have, we just pull Lindsay out for it. But today, though, I do know that, you can speak to it from a variety of different angles, including, I think, some personal experience. But let's get the kind of the house business out of the way. And are you a medical doctor, Lindsay? Should we be calling you Dr. Hamrick?
I sure am not a medical doctor or a veterinarian for that matter. I'm just a person who has been covered in pet hair and saliva my entire life and have watched a variety of folks either suffer or thrive in that environment.
Absolutely. That's just one of the things is we don't want to cover. This isn't doctor advice. We're not talking to a medical doctor here because sometimes, very rare instances, allergies can be a very, very serious issue for some people. I think it's rare, but we just want to get that out of the way. Consult your doctor, folks.
Yeah. And we hear from people, I think, all the time about pet allergies. And I think it is something a lot of our listeners, this will really, I think, hit for them today. And I know that there are those that find out, oh, I'm allergic. What do I do with the animal in my home? And I know, Lindsay, you're going to cover some of that. So let's jump in and talk a little bit about this. Tell us how you said that you've dealt with saliva and dogs for years. How has this hit home for you in some specific ways, Lindsay?
Yeah. So I think from my time in animal shelters, anyone who's worked in a shelter or a rescue, they will have a long list of folks that have called in a panic because either they have just developed allergies for the first time, or maybe they've got a new baby or a child who's starting to develop allergies. And they're making some really hard decisions about their physical health, about the health of their children, and what to do in their house to mitigate some of the issues or figure out, is this an allergy that's going to be so bad that I'm not going to be able to keep my pets in the house with that family member? And so I certainly have heard from a lot of members of the public over the course of the time that I was in sheltering. But most recently, last year, I moved in with my partner, Joe, and his two children. And both Joe and one of his daughters are allergic to cats and dogs. And so, as you can imagine, working for the Humane Society of the United States, part of our dating process was really trying to figure out if this was going to be a deal breaker, if we were going to be able to live together and everyone could still thrive with what they needed. Because for me, which isn't necessarily the case for everybody, I can't not live with animals. It's just not going to be something that is going to be successful for me. So we needed to go about it in a sort of methodical way to figure out how we could arrive
Joe,
here.
If you're listening, Joe, are you about to make some announcement, Lindsay? Is he no longer? Sorry, Joe.
Well, we bought this house, so I think we're stuck. Everybody has to deal now.
So you said that he and his child had allergies.
Yes, one of the girls has allergies. So some of the things that we did was before we moved in together, we took some time to spend time with my dogs. I have 3 dogs. And we knew that both Joe and his daughter had reactions to other pets in the past. In fact, he had to rehome some pets early on when she started to develop allergies as a young child. And so they'd already been through the heartbreak of it. Obviously, we don't want to go through that again. And so we would do visits. We go for walks. They would do varying levels of cuddling with the dogs. I have one dog who, if she's not like laying on your body, she's not close enough to you. And so it's very difficult to have space from her. So his daughter would let our dog just kind of hang out on top of her, and we'd see what the reaction was. I'll give the caveat that to what Chad said, which is that some allergies can be really horrible. And so we had enough experience to know that, she wasn't going to suffer tremendously or have some kind of really serious reaction to it. But we needed to know how bad it was going to be. So we did that over the course of many months. I let them pet sit the dogs once to get a sense of what it was like to be around them a lot, and we gave it a go. So far, so good.
So it's kind of a transition sort of thing. You over the period of weeks, months, whatever, you know this is going to happen and transition into it.
That's right. They were basically dating my dogs while I was dating Joe.
Well, talk about some of those. You mentioned, kind of watching some of the symptoms and things. What are some of the symptoms of pet allergies?
I think the most, and again, I'm not a doctor, but the most common things are sneezing, runny nose, difficulty breathing. A lot of folks who have allergies might have rashes that come up on their skin, which can be exacerbated by pet hair, saliva, especially if someone gets scratched, like by a cat. Some of that can make it much worse. And so those were the things we were watching. And spoiler alert, both of them still sneeze a bit living here. If his daughter spends too much time with a dog on top of her or licking her a lot, she will get a bit of a rash on her skin. So we just try to avoid some of that by making sure that her room is separate. The door is always closed. So my dogs don't spend a lot of time in that space where she's spending a lot of time. And then when we're all together in the living room or downstairs, she can interact with them. She loves them so much. It's really hard for her not to be all over them, but at least she can go up to her room if she's starting to feel like she's getting sniffly or something.
So what other kind of, Lindsay, I assume cleaning the house, vacuuming, things like that. I mean, pet hair, pet dander, those are the things that kind of cause those allergy symptoms to kick up. Is that right? So cleanliness is part of this mitigation process against allergies. Is that right?
Yes. And I'll preface this part of the advice with, sort of what Kelly was talking about having resources to do some of these things. I don't want to make it sound like all of these things are accessible to every pet owner out there, especially if you're a renter. You can't do much with the apartment or house that you're in.
I want hardwood floors in my rental apartment.
Right.
Well, good luck there.
That's right. So in this house, there were a few rooms that had carpeting. We did rip those out because the previous folks also had pets, and replace them with cleanable, wood laminate flooring. All of our area rugs that we have are washable. So not only can we vacuum them, but we can wash and dry them, which I think pulls more of the hair and dander out of them than vacuuming does. We bought some room filters for a couple of the rooms that try to take some of the dander and stuff in the air that might be affecting them.
Now, is that like a air purifier sort of thing? Is that what you're referring to? Okay.
Yeah, it's probably not the fanciest kind. And we actually thought we would need some everywhere in the house. We only ended up needing a couple of them.
So it's just like the main living areas, maybe where the animals and the people are most of the time, like a den or a living room.
That's right. And we did put one in her bedroom, and we have one in our bedroom because the dogs do sleep in our bedroom. So Joe is more exposed to their constant hair and whatnot. And then we try to clean the house, as often as I think anybody else cleans the house. And we're careful about ventilation. So making sure windows are open. I think for folks who maybe have other kinds of allergies like pollen and all the other things people can be allergic to, it can get exacerbated. So sometimes it's hard to tell like what somebody might be allergic to. But we try to keep windows open when we can and keep airflow moving.
And what about, so we hear a lot about when people are looking at getting maybe dogs, getting the least the hypoallergenic, or dogs that, don't cause allergies, or there's a lot out there I know on that.
Yeah, I think everyone is different. Every allergy is different. Every animal is different. One thing that I would point out is that saliva from the animal is likely to cause reactions in folks who have allergies. And so, regardless of the hair on the animal that you're adopting, if they're licking you, you might have a reaction to that anyway.
Which I think most people don't know that. I think, and conversations I've had with friends, they're talking about the fur. So I think that's an important point, Lindsay, that it's not necessarily the fur or the type of hair on the animal. It is the saliva of the animal.
Yeah, it can definitely be the saliva. We have 3 short-haired dogs. There does seem to be a difference between how allergic they are to the fur of one of the dogs. Of course, the dog who likes to sleep on top of us is the dog that they are most sensitive to. And then the other 2 dogs, there seems to be a little bit of reaction, but we can tell a difference. And so, and then we have a family member with a cat, and it's exacerbated with cats. So I have made a significant compromise by saying that I won't adopt a permanent cat again, but we are continuing to be available for foster care so that I can get a cat fix for about 6 weeks at a time. They will suffer and deal with it, and then the cats can go on to their new home so we can go back to normal. So we have noticed a difference between species, different individual dogs. My best advice, if you aren't sure, is foster or pet sit for a friend or family member, and see if you notice a difference between particular hair lengths, types, etc.
Yeah,
Well, it
good
sounds
idea.
like you've, aside from doing the cleaning and the air filters and a lot of things like that, that what you've also done, the 3 of you, and you and your partner for sure, and this doesn't cost anything. You've been very communicative about this and talked about it. And, like you said, compromise or looked at how can we, make this work for our family. And I think that's available to anybody.
That's right. And I think that our situation is sort of the best case scenario where people were making decisions along the way about were they comfortable. Did we need to have her seen by a doctor to make sure that we were covering all our bases? We all did talk about allergy testing and allergy shots if things were going to get complicated. We have not reached that point, but it is something that we would consider.
That's what I
But
wanted to mention. I wanted to actually ask you about that, Lindsay, about that there are, besides the stuff you've mentioned, the vacuuming and all that, there are medical mitigations as well that you can talk to your doctor about. There's even over-the-counter allergy pills that you can take, or shots. I don't know if those are out. Those probably aren't over the counter, but there are different things that you could do. Is that right? And sounds like you're not there yet.
Yes, and of course, consult with your doctor, pediatrician if you're considering either over-the-counter drugs or allergy testing and shots. But there is options available for folks who have that access to medical care. And then the newest thing, which we are very optimistic about, is that there may potentially be a shot for your cat in the future. I don't know how far along this is for dogs, where your cat would get a very safe injection that removes the protein that is likely to cause most allergies. So there may be a time in the near future where people who have always been very allergic to cats can finally adopt a cat because they won't actually experience their allergies.
I mean, that could be game changing.
That's very cool. Yeah. And that's that's the perfect American thing, right? It's like we're going to fix the cat. I'm the one that's allergic, but let's fix the cat part. Come on, we're going to the vet. We're going to get a shot. Not me. I'm not getting any shot. Let's give the cat the shot. But that's very cool. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So there's a team of scientists somewhere in some lab working on this. That's great.
I assume not harmful to the cats. They're working through the process to make sure it's safe for all. And
that's right. And we don't know enough yet to know, is there any side effects? How long does it last? Would it be part of your regular vet visit with your cat? Get your rabies shot, get your cat's allergy shot. But I think I think it could be life-saving for so many cats in animal shelters with folks who are really interested in having a cat as a pet and just cannot do it because of all the reasons we've talked about. I also think it's important to remember that there's plenty of situations in people's lives where they may end up living with a pet and they didn't get to make all these conscious decisions along the way. You might need a roommate because your rent has skyrocketed and the roommate that you have move in has a dog or a cat. You might be taking care of an elderly parent or somebody else in your family who is very bonded to their animal. And the last thing you want to do is separate them, but you're suffering, as that happens. And so I think hopefully some of these tips or ways that have been successful, depending on the severity of the allergies that you're dealing with, will give you some ways to mitigate in like an interim situation, and might be able to give you a chance to test out, how bad your allergies still are if you were allergic as a kid. Maybe they've gotten better, maybe they've gotten worse, and the only way to really know sometimes is to spend a little bit of time safely around an animal.
Lindsay, you mentioned that earlier, that developing the allergies can possibly develop, like as even adults. I'm a grown adult, and you could slide your way into being allergic all of a sudden, which is new to people, I think.
Yeah, and I think we should be careful all the time about judging why folks bring animals into shelters to begin with. But for this topic in particular, I think there can be a little bit of an edge about, oh, you gave up your cat because you're suddenly allergic, as though the people made it up. And it for sure can happen. Or somebody develops an autoimmune disease or some other human medical condition where having, an allergy to the animals is not going to be safe to deal with at the same time. And so, again, consult with your doctor, find out what the risks are, what the options are to be able to live successfully with your pets. And if you need to surrender or rehome for this reason, I think that we should take that seriously and try to find solutions to that problem as opposed to judging folks who end up in that situation.
Well, and you talking about that shot that's at some point in the phase of coming to market. My guess is that if I'm at a pharmaceutical company, I'm going to be looking at, we know that home or pet ownership is increasing each year. People are spending more on their pets. We've certainly seen that. If I'm at a pharmaceutical company or have something in the pipeline, research and development, there is certainly money to be made on this, but I hope that means we're going to see more potential, medical or, interventions that can really help alleviate some of the issues for allergy sufferers, since people do want to be with their pets.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think whenever technology can safely address some of the issues that we see, everybody wins when it works.
Yeah,
absolutely. So for our listeners who don't remember Lindsay on being previously on the show, she fosters so many animals in her life. She's had just a revolving door of fosters. I could have a hard time imagining that you would ever be without animals, like you said earlier. And
well, full disclosure, there have been other people in my past where our relationship or dating ended for this reason. I had dated two previous people back in the day who were either more allergic or just not. It just wasn't something they wanted to work through. And that's a deal breaker, y'all. I gotta live my life.
Is this on dating app profiles? Like
allergic when I was pets? On dating apps,
it should be, so people know which way to swipe. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
But for you, and I think for so many people, it sounds like you've worked to a situation where you're still dealing with issues. You've got them minimized with your partner and kids. But the benefits of having a pet in your life, in your household, there's so many benefits. We've talked about many on the show before, stress reduction, things like that. There's a lot of benefits.
Yeah. And I'll just say with our experience here that these girls are so bonded with my dogs after just a year of living with them. One of them has two stuffed animals in the shape and form of the Chihuahua that we have. She has pajama bottoms that have her face and the Chihuahua together. So there are so many benefits to having pets. Of course, anybody who's listening to this podcast already knows that.
Right.
That, if you're not an animal person and you don't want to sneeze and deal with it, or deal with some of these mitigations to allergies, cool. But the majority of people in this country want to be around animals. And the more that we can find solutions to that issue, the happier everybody else is going to be.
Absolutely. You guys, I just read, just as we get towards the end here, I just read, was looking through some sciencey papers about which state has the most pet allergies. Do you know which one?
No.
It's Massachusetts.
Oh, well,
Really?
wouldn't it be?
I messed up the joke. It's Massachusetts.
Where's Carrie? Where's my regular co-host? Bring her back.
This is all going to be on the cutting room floor, people. Forget it. This isn't making the show.
Wow.
I love it.
Well, Lindsay, this is great info. Anything else we need to talk about, Kelly?
No, I think we've talked about, obviously, talk to your medical professionals, your doctor, your pediatrician. There are solutions out there already. Hopefully there's more coming in the medical realm. But just having communication, reaching out for help. I mean, if you're thinking of surrendering your pet, look at your options. But if you have to, should be no judgment there. But I think that, as we learn more and as we realize how important it is for people and pets to be together, I think we'll make great strides in this area. So, but I think your tips and the things that you've brought up, even personally, that you and your family have worked through, Lindsay, are going to be really helpful to our listeners. So,
yeah, glad to help.
So thank you for joining us, Lindsay and Chad. Good to see you and be with you today. And Humane Voices podcast listeners, we look forward to being with you next time.